Kia ora, I'm Murph, I'm the scientist in a lecture here at the BHU, and Happy New Year. It's the 5th of January 2025. It's the middle of summer here in Aotearoa, New Zealand, and we have had some time off over Christmas. Everything's growing like crazy because we also had a load of rain before Christmas, and we really need to start getting on top of things. And one of the things we need to start getting on top of is our Comfrey problem. So this is Comfrey. It's quite a pretty plant, or it's certainly at least got these beautiful purple flowers on it, and it's much loved by bees, and I think I can get a bumblebee just in shot here. But while it's quite pretty, it's also becoming a major problem for us. We have areas now that are completely swamped by it. So Comfrey and organics have a long association. Comfrey was initially promoted by this chap called Henry Doubleday, who lived through most of the 1800s, and after which the organisation in the UK that's currently called Garden Organic was named the Henry Doubleday Association. And it was founded by Lawrence Hills in the 1950s, and quite a lot of its early work was to pick up on Doubleday's efforts to promote Comfrey, and Garden Organic did that, exactly that. And the BHU picked up on the view that this Comfrey was this kind of wonder plant in organics, and it planted it, and so it was established here. But over the decades, and particularly in the last couple of decades, this stuff has spread everywhere, and it's now becoming really quite a problem because, as you could see from that previous shot, it's really competitive. It'll smother out most other herbaceous, pasture type species, and it spreads from root fragments. So you can see here, it's got these big, fat, gnarly roots on it, which go to some considerable depth. And if you break those up, and the same goes for dandelion root, each piece of root can regrow into a new plant. So when you go through and cultivate it, you basically just spread it around, and then it can be taken around by pieces of machinery, for example. We don't think it seeds very much. I mean, there's quite a lot of this stuff here, and the occasional plant pops up in places such as fence lines and shelter belts where clearly it couldn't have been got there by machinery. So I think there's a small amount of seed produced, but its main means of reproduction is by these roots. So our plan of action here, and we've just tried this out. I'll stop and show you the strip down here. Here is borrowed an undercutter bar, and I tried taking it through here, but the ground's too hard and the Comfrey leaves are getting in the way. So what we're going to do is we're going to come through and mow. Then we're going to come through with some old ransom rigid leg tines to loosen the ground up so we can get the undercutter bar deep enough that we can go through and start severing these roots off horizontally at depth. And then probably have to do that several times, so a bare fallow, which is not great. But we hope now that it's the middle of summer, by really hitting these plants very hard now, we'll be able to get on top of them. And I probably should say as well why Comfrey was kind of associated with organics. It was kind of viewed as this wonder plant. You know, it's edible, livestock can eat it, although probably if they eat too much of this stuff, it's not going to be particularly good for them. So they can have it as part of their diet. And it had the view that it's got those deep roots, and there's this common view in organics and some other places as well, that these deep rooting plants bring up nutrients from depth, and therefore help kind of supply nutrients to the topsoil and the following crops and all this stuff. Unfortunately, it's complete rubbish. Plants actually work exactly the opposite way. What they're doing is taking carbon dioxide out of the air and turning it into carbohydrates and proteins and lipids, and then pushing, you know, up to 50% of those organic chemistry made down into the soil to feed the soil microbes. And plant roots are therefore pushing more stuff out of their roots than they're actually taking up. But also there's actually no plant available nutrients worth talking about at depth apart from a little bit of nitrate. In a pasture system, all the plant available nutrients are in the top 5 centimetres. That's why when you take a soil core in a pasture system, it's only about 5 centimetres deep, and why you take a deeper core in arable and horticultural systems where the soil's being mixed through cultivation. So there aren't actually nutrients down there for plants to bring up because there's none that are in a plant available form for them to extract. What those deep roots do is act as principally storage organs when they're big fat things like on the comfrey here, or a dandelion or a dock. But what they do is bring up water from depth. So the kind of whole thing around the compost teas is also mostly nonsense. So, you know, these things are not extracting nutrients that otherwise couldn't be got at by plants. So frankly, the thing's just now a pest, a weed, and we want done with it. So we're going to be using this cultivation approach in the areas where we can get the tractor in, and then we're going to be doing a whole load of vigorous handwork using line trimmers, weed eaters as they're called here in Aotearoa, strimmers in the UK, to then attack it in other places and just keep bashing it. We have tried putting black plastic, so using light exclusion here, and that did work. It did have to be down probably for at least 6 months, but our problem is we've got such large areas, getting enough plastic that's light proof and then keeping it on the ground in Canterbury, which is a very windy area, just proved too hard. And also, if there's any holes in the sheets, the thing just grows up through any slightest gap in the sheet and it'll poke its head through. So it's tractor time. And realised I didn't get any film of the comfrey that has been under the plastic covers. So this has now been mown, but I got some still photos yesterday that I'll put up, and so you can see what it looks before I mowed it. But you can see there's quite an area here in the middle where there is in places absolutely no comfrey at all, so it has been completely killed. You can see down here there's some patches where it's probably got through some gaps in the plastic, but this has been down since spring, so September, October, November, December, January, we're saying 4 months approximately. And where we have had complete cover, we have, you know, completely killed this stuff off. And everything else as well. But just that challenge of keeping plastic on the ground and having continuous whole of sheets here was too much for us. Right, back to the rest of the video. Okay, it's a couple of days later, it's the 7th now, but we now have got our undercutter bar sorted out for attacking this comfrey. Undercutter bar, along with a rather impoverished Nicholson or Webb steerage hose sitting behind it, that's due for repair. But returning to the undercutter bar, this is what I've just been using, and that's been working really, really well. I've had to take a set of vibrating fingers off this bar, and I'll show you those in a second. The finger bar that I've taken off, this is driven by a cam mechanism off the PTO on this end, and it allows these fingers to just vibrate up and down. I won't try and simulate that while I'm trying to hold the camera, but this was basically just causing a massive amount of blockage behind that blade. That blade now is just very, very flat, slices through the ground very easily. This is designed for actually harvesting vegetables and loosening everything up and getting them up onto the surface. But I successfully managed to get this into the ground. It took a bit of backwardsing and forwardsing to start with to get it to cut through the detritus layer, the turf layer. But once it got into the ground, it pulled in really strongly, and so I really needed these depth wheels on the back. But what we've since decided, comfrey grows in a crown, and we'll just come around here, and what we need to do is destroy the top of the crown. So we got the old Howard rotovator called a rotary hoe here in Aotearoa, New Zealand. So we're going to go through the comfrey first, smash the crowns up with this. That'll mean we can get the undercutter bar into the ground much more easily. It was a bit of a struggle sometimes to get it to bite to start with, and then we can progressively work deeper. It'll only lift probably about 10 to 15 centimeters depth of soil, say 4 to 6 inches. But then that's going to allow us to go through, cut these root systems off, and we're going to do the same for Californian thistle, creeping thistle, Cirsium arvense as well. That's the end of this video. Thanks for watching. Hope that was interesting, and we'll see you in the next one.